This is the Today with Tally podcast.
And welcome back to the Today with Tally podcast, folks. We have a great show in store for you today. Look, we're going to sit down with a guy who's got quite the story, and it's a little bit different than what we've heard in the past. I'm sure a lot of you guys out there and gals have had a tough childhood growing up. You know, let's face it, we've all had those times where we've, said no to mom and dad and gone out and kind of rebelled a little bit, but you kind of circle back and you begin to behave again. Our next guest, telling you, dude's got a story which led from being abandoned as a baby all the way to redemption. And what we're going to talk about today is everything in between there. Now, just to kind of set this up, chaos was normal for our next guest. His name is Tyler Norsworthy. Now, his childhood challenges were they were huge. They just stacked up against this kid emotionally and mentally, which led him down this dark path to drugs and alcohol as an early teenager. Now, he wasn't doing this just to get high for pleasure. This was an escape for him because he wanted to just disappear. The addiction took over Tyler's life, and it led him to homelessness, violence, and even juvenile prison. Now, after prison, Tyler would get out and he would relapse again and again, which led him to taking bigger drugs like fentanyl. Well, he overdosed on fentanyl, and he's lucky he didn't pass away. He survived the overdose. But after the overdose, he went right back to doing the drugs and even committing a violent robbery. Now, when he was caught, he was looking at 15 years in maximum state prison. He got lucky, he only served a year and a half. But when he got out, he relapsed again. Just couldn't seem to figure it out until he checked himself into rehab. That's where he met his wife, Amber. And today he has been sober for 10 years. Tyler Norsworthy, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good. I appreciate letting me come on.
Yeah, man, no problem. Look, we met on social media. I think you follow maybe a couple of my pages, and I'm like, what's the Dying Breed Lifestyle Apparel company? And so I started to do a little research in you, saw the about, and I'm like, man, this kid's seen some stuff here. And over the last 6 months, 8 months, or whatever, we've done some collaboration, and finally you said, hey, man, can I come on your podcast? I mean, I'm not a veteran, but I have a hell of a story. And I said, yeah, of course, man. I have everybody on my podcast. You don't just need to be a veteran. I mean, we're all in this walk in life together. And, what you're doing out there are some big things that very deservingly of being told, and getting you out there in your new company that you have, and really just talk to folks out there that are going through hell to say, hey, look, man, if I could do it, you could do it. I mean, the deck was completely stacked against me. I was abandoned as a baby. So again, through all of my, trials in life and the life challenges and all the roadblocks and the walls that were right there built right in front of my face, if I can get through that wall and over that wall, so can you. Tyler, dude, abandoned before you could even speak. I mean, describe that.
So just the knowledge that I have of it, because it was so early, was from my birth, or from my adopted parents, the information that they got. But essentially what happened is I was born the youngest of three to my birth mom, and she, I guess, physically or mentally wasn't capable of taking care of us, didn't want to take care of us. And what happened, she took us to the babysitters one day. She dropped us off and never came back and got us, and that's how we got into state's custody.
So did they ever track your mom down?
So she's actually tried to reach out several times. I personally, I haven't really said anything. I don't have a desire um, to have a relationship with her. Do I forgive her? Of course. But yes, we do know where she is. We know, what she's about and all that. And I have the freedom to talk to her if I want to. I just don't really have the desire to.
I guess I was thinking more back when it happened, when you were a baby, when she left you at the babysitter's and never came back. I mean, isn't that like some sort of a criminal offense?
Oh, yes, sir. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I just know that the babysitter eventually called the state and they came and got us. Now, whether she got in trouble for that or not, I'm not 100% sure. She probably should have.
Sure, sure.
Yes,
So
sir.
you would end up getting adopted and you would have, your adoption parents. How did that go? I mean, how did they treat you?
So initially, when I got with them, just from all the past trauma and the stuff that we had been through, it was a very rocky beginning with them. But they are just the most amazing people, and they weathered every single thing that came with, adopting me and my sister. Now, they adopted me officially. My sister came with me to begin with, but they weren't able to keep her because she was so explosive and had so much going on that they weren't able to actually care for her. So she actually got back into the state's custody, but always treated me with love and patience and kindness.
So would you, I mean, safe to say that your sister came in to this new relationship with adoptive parents very angry?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yeah, she was very explosive and I was more introverted.
Hmm.
So, I was explosive on the inside, but it wasn't coming out in a way that it was like disrupting everyone's life. So it was just a different type of anger that I was dealing with. But yeah, she was very outwardly explosive.
So was your sister, I mean, was she older than you?
She's a year older than I am.
Oh, wow. So, I mean, so she was, I mean, again, just a toddler. And, having been left, that does stir, a lot of emotion in somebody. It doesn't matter if you're old or if you're young or, anywhere in the middle. So,
Yes,
um,
sir.
how's the relationship you have right now with your sister?
So my sister it's not a bad relationship. We kind of correspond on Facebook. I believe she lives in Washington. Um, but we're not close by any means, but you're as close to someone as you can be on Facebook, essentially.
Mm,
That's that's
yeah.
that's the level of relationship that we have.
So, your new life with your adoptive parents was, I mean, how would you describe it? I mean, was it good? Was it bad? Was it normal, average? What would you say?
At first, it was very, chaotic, kind of rocky, and then it kind of transitioned into, I guess, somewhat normal. As my sister got put back into the state's custody, and it was just me, we kind of transitioned into this like a little bit of a peaceful period, where they were just having to deal with me, and I wasn't really acting out yet. Um, there was a period of time when I think I was like 8 or 9, where I started getting bullied really bad in school because I was different. I was somewhat, overweight. I was very introverted, so I wasn't social like a lot of the other kids was. And that was a difficult time, and that was probably like 4 or 5 years of that where I was having to deal with that on top of all the stuff that I had going on inside. But as far as them just being parents, there are no better parents than the mom and dad that I got.
Good. And, that takes a lot, for somebody to
Yes.
stand up and say, hey, you know what, I want to, take care of this young man and, and love him. as
Yes.
if he were our own. And I
Hmm.
know you do call them mom and dad, I believe, to this day, correct?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Yeah. And I do apologize. I said, would you describe your life growing up as normal? And I'm like, well, you were, I would say that your life was more chaos. You did have that period of
Yeah.
normalcy, but obviously, you would find that chaos lifestyle, or it would find you here very quickly. Now,
Hmm.
you probably didn't even have a whole lot of friends growing up if you kept to yourself and you were getting bullied, or if you kind of felt like you were overweight. I mean, who did you have to talk to other than your parents?
So I was, I did have to go to therapy quite a bit. So there was that aspect of it. I would have to see a therapist at least once a week, I believe, and we did that for years. So I was kind of able to dump a lot of the stuff that I had in those sessions. But as far as just like friends and stuff, I remember just having probably like one or two actual friends that I would hang out with up until um, about seventh or eighth grade, where I kind of started coming out of my shell a little bit. So I didn't have a lot of outlets to let go a lot of the stuff that I had, and it kind of built up and built up and built up, and that's what kind of led into the escape from it with the drugs and alcohol.
So you went to therapy. You were able to offload some baggage, some childhood traumas. The anger was quite explosive, and it was getting ready to rear its ugly head. And then
Hmm.
all of a sudden, you start dabbling with drugs and alcohol. How did you
Hmm.
find that drug dealer? Like how that? I mean, just one day you said, "Hey, I want to do drugs." I mean, was this like experimental? Did you see this at a party? Like, I mean, explain how that all happened.
It was actually I joined the wrestling team in eighth grade, and it was one of the kids on the wrestling team. He smoked weed, and me and him had become kind of close, like being wrestling partners and stuff like that. And he was like, "Come hang out with me after school one day," and I was like, "All right." So I came over to his house one day, and there was like three or four of them, and they were all smoking out of this bong, and it was huge. It was like that big. It was massive, and I was just like, I want to try that, and I did it. And when I smoked it, all of a sudden, boom! I didn't feel, I didn't have any issues. I was happy. It just took away everything, and from that moment, it was like it was like a door opened. It was like this is what I've been looking for, and that's
Mm.
that's pretty much how it started.
Instant relief
Mm,
kind of made you numb a little bit. Kind of
mm,
gave you that belonging, perhaps. With now you had some friends on the wrestling team that you knew that you could get high with after practice, and all your problems and worries and all the traumas that you've ever experienced can just be erased for a period of time
mhm.
until the next high.
Right. Yeah.
And
Once it wore off, then you're right back to square one.
so weed, it's there's a lot of medicinal aspects, to
Mm,
weed. Of course, the way you were hitting it, probably not so much of the medicinal side, but
yes,
still
sir.
could be used medicinally if grown and
Yes.
basically produced in a medicinal type manner, under certain supervision and guidelines and things like that. I mean, really, the
Mhm.
CBD, the CBDA, the CB. I mean, all of the. I mean, there's so many good cannabinoids that are found in that plant that so many folks out there don't truly realize. But that's
Yes, sir.
besides the point. We all know that it's medicinal until you heat it, and then once it's heated, it becomes psychoactive, and the rest is history. Now,
Correct.
pretty a calming drug. Yeah. What led you to the harder drugs?
Well, I started smoking so. You're right. I do believe medicinally it can benefit people. I have no problem with the marijuana at all. But for me personally, it
Sure.
just wasn't cutting it. You know what I
Sure.
mean? Because eventually I started smoking it and smoking it and smoking it and smoking it before school, smoking it after school, smoking it at lunch. And then eventually I was like, all right, well, this isn't really doing it anymore, you know? Um, what else you got? And
Mm,
it's I don't want to say that it's a gateway drug, but it was a gateway drug for me. Like the way I was using it, it was progressing me towards something stronger. So
hmm.
because of the raw emotion I had mixed with the desire to escape, that's what led me to wanting to try harder things to feel that escape.
I I would say it's a gateway drug. I mean, just because that's the first drug that most kids are going to experience,
That's
and
true.
it's kind of like taking an opioid. It's like,
Mhm.
all right, it says to take half, and oh, now my pain, I need to take one now. Oh, I need to take two. I need to take three. This ain't doing it for me anymore. And before you know what, you have a needle in your arm, and you're
Right.
doing heroin, and you're snorting
Correct.
cocaine, um,
Mhm.
eh, you know, from some dealer in the streets, and not
Right.
knowing what the hell is even in it.
Right.
And, unfortunately, this is where a lot of folks start. Now, it doesn't always end bad. A lot of these kids, and it doesn't matter what your socioeconomic background is. I mean, you could be, like I said,
Right.
abandoned at birth, and be hanging out with a 15-year-old kid who lives in a $5 million house smoking, weed out of his garage. That does
Correct.
not discriminate. And
Right.
all sorts of people are always going to want to feel that numbness. Just because you live in a huge house, and everything is great, it seems as if that doesn't mean that kid doesn't have problems either.
Right.
So money isn't always the end all to your problems, but you would end up uh, getting deep into the drug world, if you will, and your
Yes.
violent side came out, and you would end up in juvenile prison.
Yes, sir.
Explain how that all went down.
Yeah, this was probably I probably started when I was like 13. This was by the time I was 16, I had already been to rehab once. I had gotten out of rehab, got back to Oklahoma where I was living, and stuck in the perpetual cycle that I was in, relapse after relapse, relapse. This time, my mom and dad said, "That's enough. You can't stay here anymore without being clean." And I said, "All right, bye, see ya." And I left and I hit the road, and I'm couch surfing, staying at hotels, cheap hotels, all this stuff. Eventually, one night I end up at this apartment complex, and there's like four apartments. This is a girl that I know. I'm sleeping on her couch. I get this wild hair. I'm like, man, I don't have any money. I need to get some, whatever I was using at the time. So I start breaking into each one of these apartment complexes. Turns out the third one that I broke into was the police sergeant of the town that I was living in, apartment complex. They hunt me down, find all the stuff in my backpack out of his house that I stole, and that's how I got. That's how I ended up in JIT camp because they were not gonna let that go.
Dude went to juvie. Yeah, you broke into the wrong crib. I mean,
Yeah,
you found the cop of the neighborhood. I mean,
right.
so what were you on at the time?
I was definitely doing a lot of cocaine and ecstasy. That's mainly what I was doing.
At 16.
Yes, sir.
So where were you finding coke at six? I mean, is it? I mean, I guess I'm very naive to a lot of stuff. I mean, I had a
Yeah.
wild childhood as well, and unfortunately, a lot of that stuff was around the house when I
Mm,
was growing up. So I
gotcha.
could have engaged in that; nobody would have known, but I didn't. I was a dare
Mhm,
kid in the
mhm.
'80s, and I was like, I got scared straight, very early age. But being 16 out of your parents' home, living on the streets in Oklahoma, Did it just present itself to you, or did you have to go looking for it to experience what this new high would bring you?
So basically, how it worked for me was you would end up at this party, say, and there would be a mix of, you know, semi older kids, 17, 18, and then there'd be like the adult that's letting all these kids come party at their house. That adult would know somebody that would sell to you. And that's essentially how you find it at that age. You know, you're not in with the cartels or anything, which there might be kids like that. I wasn't. I was finding it off of the, the random dude at the party, but that's essentially how I was getting it.
Cartel never came to mind, dude. I mean, that's a different, yeah, that's a different podcast. No, we're just
That's
talking
a
about a
whole
16-year-old
nother.
kid, yeah, experimenting with some dope, and all of a sudden he finds himself snorting cocaine. Yeah. I mean, obviously, if you look at the line of, distribution, yeah, then it could lead
Right.
back. But yeah, that's
Correct.
totally, yeah, this is a totally different story there, but everything we watch these days is cartel driven. It's like almost as if the media and Hollywood wants everybody hooked on some sort of drug.
Right.
Um, so you go to juvie, and so,
Mhm.
I mean, did you have any street cred going in, knowing that you broke into a cop's house?
No, I was my parents were very, I'm not even gonna act like I was running the streets like I was in gangs and stuff. Like later on, yeah, I was presented with opportunities for that. But in the beginning, dude, I was some suburban white kid going into this. And JIT camp is it's it's rougher than the lifers camp I went to when I was an adult. Like because it's a bunch of 16, 17, 18-year-old kids trying to prove something out of gangs and stuff. And it was just like straight gladiator camp. It was crazy. So I went in there scared to death. It, it- Luckily, while I was in there, I don't know how much detail you want me to get into, but it's, essentially what happened was is you get tested when you get in there, and it was this freaking kid with flames going up his neck, like buff white kid, and he was like, "You better get in the bath," just like, and I was like scared to death, and I had to fight this kid. And then after that, they don't really mess with you, but people are just fighting left and right, getting hit in the face with locks and just all types of stuff. And it was very interesting. I'll say that.
It's no different than being the new guy at the gym. You're always going to get sweated, and you're always going to get tested, and you're going to get checked. It's
Hmm.
like that bullying on the playground. Everybody wants a piece of you until you fight, and then once you fight, you become friends. You become more of an acquaintance.
Right.
That's just the nature of the beast. That's just the animal instinct in us
Hmm.
men. And
Yes.
if you got that instinct, well, you did have that
Hmm.
instinct because you found yourself in juvie. Because
Right.
a lot of those kids, they have a lot of issues with so many things that do
Hmm.
lead them to fighting. Knives, guns. The knife, and the gun, and the drug club, and that's
Right.
definitely a club that you don't want to be a part of.
Hmm.
But you'd go through this juvenile program, and it still. I mean, how long were you there?
I was 4 months in county, Oklahoma City County, and 6 months in the JIT camp in Alva, Oklahoma, in the panhandle of Oklahoma. So 10 months total.
And this is all at the ripe age of 16, 17 years old.
I think I was 17, maybe going on 18, something like that. So while most kids are doing prom and stuff,
So
yeah,
you,
that's what I was
yeah,
doing.
you weren't in the soccer mom van or going to baseball practice or, running
No,
laps for the
absolutely.
football coach. You were, basically couch surfing from juvenile prisons to this camp back here and getting arrested and dabbling with drugs and coke and marijuana and alcohol until you still didn't learn your lesson. you know,
Correct.
you you get back on the streets, and then what?
So I got released, and I ended up back in Oklahoma I think it was probably like 3 months. My cycle was like 3 months on, and then I would go crazy and go back out. And I think it was like about 3 or 4 months. Went back out, got kicked out of the house again, doing the same thing, surfing couches and cheap hotels, riding around with random girls and, dudes. And at this point, I had actually started selling somewhat, not like on a scale that's impressive, but just to get money. And my mom actually reminded me of this because I called her the other day to get the details, and sometimes they get a little fuzzy, but I had sold in some area, and it was run by a Hispanic gang, and they were like after me. So I'm scared. Yeah, I'm scared. I call my mom. I'm like, all right, I'm ready to get clean, but really I'm trying to get out of Oklahoma. And she comes and gets me. We go to Tennessee, and that's where the beginning of that is the beginning of the Florida saga, leaving Oklahoma, going to Tennessee.
That's where we could have cued the whole cartel moment there.
Yeah, that's probably where the cartel comes in.
Yeah, you got those young shot callers on the street wanting to know who this white boy is coming into their hood selling dope, and they're
Yeah,
like, "Not on my
they weren't.
block."
Yeah, they weren't having it.
Yeah, but of course, they're doing it for other reasons. I mean, you were just trying to get your next fix. So you were I
Correct.
mean, essentially, you were a junkie that
Right.
was getting high on his own supply once you got the
Mhm.
cash to go out
Right.
and so you said something very interesting. You said, I had a 3 month cycle, and
Mhm.
for folks that don't understand that, a lot of alcoholics, anybody that has an addiction, they'll say, okay, this time I'm going to do it. And
Yeah.
go, the 30 days and you're like, dude, I could do this. And you're feeling
Right.
good, you're eating good, you're going to the gym, you're starting to
Yep.
bring in a lot of these positive influences, you're thinking positively and you want good positive change. And then you hit that 2 month mark and you're celebrating it. You're like, dude, I did it. You're on Facebook, everybody's congratulating you. Like,
Yep.
man, this is awesome. And then at about that 2.5 month mark to 3 month mark, you're like, dude, like, this isn't really even fun. Like, I
Right.
don't have any dopamine rushes. Like, I mean, like,
Mhm.
like I have no escape. I still have a ton of childhood trauma that I've never really truly unpacked.
Right.
And you get right back into the mess. And this is a very normal wash, rinse, repeat cycle. And a
Yeah.
lot of the times, those cycles will lead you back to prison for longer stints or death.
Correct.
And
Mhm.
you damn near were on that side of death. And you probably were for a little while until you came out of it or were rescued or whatever it was. But
Yes, sir.
fentanyl,
Mhm.
you went to fentanyl. I mean, talk about, you start down here and then before you know it, you're on the. It doesn't get higher than that, especially today's
Yeah.
fentanyl. A little speck will kill you. So
Right.
you ended up overdosing on that, right?
I did. And what's crazy about that is, you say from here to there, and here at this point seemed normal. Like that was like, okay, whatever. Like it's heroin, it's fentanyl, whatever. And it's crazy how you escalate to that. You know what I mean? Back here you're like smoking weed, and you're like, man, I'd never go up there. Like, and then 3 years later, this is your normal.
Mm,
And that it's this the cycle that you were talking about is kind of what fuels that. You get clean, and then you go back out, and you get clean, and then you're dealing with the fact that you're going back out, and then it just keeps piling on top of what you already have. So I ended up, long story short, ended up in a hotel room like I always have, me in the hotel rooms. And I find this random dealer. I'm walking around, I'm drunk, I'm walking around, I find this random African American kid, and I'm like, where can I get this? He's like, I got some. I buy it off of him on the street, come back. my friends are coming to the hotel room and they're like, "Hey, you need to get clean." I'm like, "All right, fine. Go out in the parking lot." They go out in the parking lot. I take the entire bag. It's probably that big, but it's full. It's completely full. Put it on the table. I do the whole bag, and I get in the vehicle. The next thing I know, and this is what they told me. I don't know if you know what the death rattle is, but they said that I did the death rattle, which is where your respiratory system starts shutting down because of the opiate. And they said I did the death rattle in their car, that they called the paramedics. The paramedics had to Narcan me like 3 times, and then I came back to, and even like I remember it like it was yesterday. 3 hours later, I was like, man, I need a drink. Just the craziness of it, and
Mm.
that's essentially what that I want to say that was my rock bottom, but it wasn't because I think when people say rock bottom, it's very fluid. You know, this person's rock bottom is not going to be the same as this person's rock bottom. And I got news for anyone listening dealing with addiction. Your rock bottom can keep going if you let it. Like there's no end to the rock bottom until you actually physically die.
Wow. So who found you unresponsive?
I was in my friend's vehicle. They were taking me to a detox center, and I was
So
in the back seat.
so you're lucky they were there, or else you would have coded
Oh yes,
in
correct.
the
Yes,
hotel room. They would have found you by the next morning by housekeeping.
yes,
Hmm. Dude, that's wild, man.
yeah.
So they brought you straight to the ER.
No, they pulled over. They called the paramedics.
Oh,
Came to where we were at. I was on the concrete, and because they called the paramedics because of what they heard me doing in the back seat. Like I
yeah,
started doing that rattle.
yeah. So when you said it's called a death rattle?
Yeah, so I didn't know what it was either, but they say what it is it's where your respiratory you're still breathing but barely, but your respiratory system is physically shutting down from the amount of opiate that's in your system. So like
Hmm.
it just eventually stops working, but it makes like a rattle noise right before it does it.
Yeah, I mean, so you were, maybe minutes away from
Oh
death.
yes, correct.
Were you seeing anything? Do you remember, anything that you were seeing?
I really I just remember black. That's all I
So
remember.
it was just like
I
you
remember
take it.
getting in the I remember getting in the vehicle after snorting that bag, and then the next thing I know, I'm on the concrete and there's like flashing lights all around me, people, and I have no idea where I'm at. That's the last thing I remember.
So there's nothing you got from doing that fentanyl. It's not like it,
Nothing.
it lasted 3 or 4 hours and you were enjoying floating or whatever it may be. I mean, so it did
Nothing.
absolutely nothing for you. You cut it up, you snorted the whole bag, did
Mhm.
nothing for you because a minute later you're getting rushed to the ER, and then your friends cared enough about you to pull over, dial 911 to get you the emergency medical attention that you needed before you
Mhm.
coded on the asphalt in a ditch on the side of the road.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Then you get to the hospital, you wake up the next morning, you want a beer.
Correct. Yep.
Dude,
I tried to go back out.
knucklehead, right?
Oh man, some people learn harder than others.
So,
Yeah.
like, where did life lead you after the overdose, man? I mean, for most people, that would be a wake up call. That would be rock bottom. That would be if I'm going to continue to live and have a
Mhm.
heartbeat and to at least, exist with other human beings, I need to stop doing what I'm doing, or else
Mhm.
I'm going to be gone very, very quickly, especially when you're at that level of needing a whole baggie of fentanyl for mentally for you to think that that's okay. that's normal.
Yeah.
And again, that's where the chaos was. That's where the life of violence was. That's where the addiction was, and that's where it ultimately led you,
Hmm.
right?
Correct. Yep. Yeah. So then the next phase of this is um, I go to a halfway house. I don't know if you know what a halfway house is. It's essentially like a midway between
Hmm.
going back into society and coming out of a rehab. So I didn't come out of a rehab, but I went to a halfway house to live there.
Hmm.
I do what I always do. I'm doing good, whatever. I'm walking around one night and I get the hankering, I want to go drink. So I go get some alcohol. I drink it. I remember, and bear with me here because it's a two-part thing to this lockup.
Hmm.
I remember getting very, very drunk, walking up to these guys at this restaurant with these girls. I apparently started talking mad crap to these guys, and next thing I know, I am on the hood of a police car in cuffs, flashing lights everywhere. They're looking through my wallet, and I'm like, what happened? So I blacked out. I tried to fight these two guys. I did fight these two guys. I actually slammed one dude's head into a window, and then they called the police when I started walking away. And the police showed up, came and got me, brought me back to the scene, and I got arrested for that. And that was the first Florida arrest. When I
Man,
got arrested, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, you've been getting arrested all over the country.
Yeah, man. Yeah, yeah. So, anyways, they arrest me. I go to West Palm Beach County. That's where I'm at. My mom actually flies down from Oklahoma, bonds me out because I call her. She bonds me out. She brings me back to the halfway house. I leave the halfway house that night. This is where I really did it. This is like I'm out on bond for this assault charge or whatever. I'm walking down the road. I go to this gas station. I steal two Four Locos. I don't know if you are familiar with Four Locos. They are energy drinks mixed with alcohol. Bad, horrible idea.
Hmm.
I down two of them. I check into this motel. I find this dude selling crack. I start smoking crack with this dude. I realize I don't have a phone. I get the bright idea to walk up to this retail store. I'm not going to say which one it is. It's a big one. Retail store. I remember walking through the doors of this retail store, blacking out. I remember coming to, there's like three or four employees around me. They're trying to take my backpack. I essentially was walking down the electronics aisle, stuffing stuff in my backpack for phones. As they're trying to take my backpack, I punched this dude in the face while trying to stab him with scissors that I was using to cut open the phones to take them. Now, because I punched him in the face, the scissors missed. If I would not have punched him, they said that I would have stabbed this dude directly in the chest and it would have been a wrap, like it would have been over. But since I did, he fell backwards. I missed. I ran out of the store. I'm running down A1A highway in Florida, and I look behind me, and there's like 15 cop cruisers chasing me. And it's like an episode of Cops, essentially. I'm running, running, running. I eventually get tired. I just lay down on the concrete, and they just swarm me. And I'm resisting. They ground my face into the concrete. I'm trying to headbutt them. It's a chaotic scene. And that's how I got the the mandatory 15-year sentence hanging over my head at this point.
Violent crime, violent robbery, attempted murder, and you should have been dead before that.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
you ultimately were leading to life in prison if you would have killed that guy. And and here you are sitting here right now. You look great. You look like, somebody that would be a role model. You look like a coach. You look like you've really turned your life around. And that's what you would look like right now in prison because
Mm.
of bad decisions after bad decisions that just piled up into your life of chaos. The word that we like to use today describes you the best because that's where you were normal. You were normal
Yep.
when you were experiencing and living in a state of chaos.
Correct.
Now, you served only a year and a half, but you were also in maximum security prison, right?
Correct. So I was supposed to get, by Florida law, 3 violent offenses. You're supposed to get a mandatory 15-year sentence, no time off, no nothing. That's the law. The lawyer that my parents got me ended up being friends with the district attorney on the case, and they like went to law school together or something, and he was able to finagle me down to that time, which is, it's a God thing is what it is, because there's no other way to describe it, because even my lawyer at the time was like, dude, I don't know if I can get this down for you. Like, he did not have a positive outlook on it, and it got switched at the very last minute, and that's what I ended up doing. It was 15 months. They sent me to I initially went to Dade County Correctional in Miami, but I got transferred to Okeechobee Correctional Facility because that's where the drug program was at. So that's how I ended up at a camp that was mainly lifers, like they were never getting out. And otherwise I would have stayed in minimum, you know what I mean? But because I needed that drug rehabilitation program, that's where I got sent.
Yeah, most folks, again, 3 strikes and you're out. And,
Yeah,
we're going to lock you up for a while. But
right.
why, why did this attorney and your parents advocate so hard for you after all these failed attempts? They're like, he's got to learn his lesson.
Hmm.
He has failed time after time after time again. The
Yep.
dude died, basically died, came back to life, 3 shots of Narcan, gets out, and now he's never going to learn his lesson. I
Right.
mean, why? Why did they advocate so hard for you to reduce your sentence from 15 years to serving only 15 months?
Man, I would have to say, love, um, just love in its purest form. Did I deserve it? Absolutely not. Was I at a point where I thought I deserved going to prison? Probably. Like, I was
Mm.
so low at that point that I felt like I deserved everything that I was getting, and I felt like I was never gonna change. But they saw something different. What they saw, man, I don't really know. I guess they saw the guy that I could be right now. Where in that instance I couldn't see it. But they probably saw this guy sitting here 10 years later is probably what did it.
They didn't give up on you,
Nope.
and now you're this remnant, if you will, and you've been saved. This
Yes,
is a story of redemption. Yeah, extremely divine.
sir.
Would you agree?
Yes, sir. Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind that it was divinity that's got me to this point at all.
All right, so you get out after 15 uh, months. Now, I got a question for you because
Yes, sir.
childhood trauma follows so many people. Did you ever say, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to do this drug today because I was abandoned when I was a kid, and I was left, for nothing, and nobody cared about me. Nobody loved me. Did you ever use being abandoned as a crutch to use or as an excuse to use?
I don't want to say that I just like openly was like, oh, I'm doing this because of this. Maybe subconsciously, just from having that happen, it was fueling it. But I don't think I was ever like, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing in the midst of using drugs and alcohol.
And I mean, obviously, you didn't. I mean, you weren't thinking anyway, so you probably weren't
Right. Yeah.
going back that far anyways, because all you were thinking about is your next high. So you're basically
Right.
living in the moment.
Yeah.
There's so
Right.
many folks out there that, I guess that's the crazy part about being an addict is that when you're doing your drug of choice or alcohol of choice, that's when you're actually in the moment. And there's so many people that don't actually live in the moment. It's like when you're sober is when it's tough because then you're living in the past, you're living in the future, and you forget about the moment. You forget about the present, being present. And
Mm.
when you are present, most of the time people are on their phones and they're looking for, again, their next dopamine rush, whether it's breaking news or it's this and that. I mean, because news is just crazy, it just consumes you every single day. And then you're just so mentally exhausted with the fear of this, of that, the uncertainty, and on and on and on and on.
Mm.
When you got out, what was the change? What was the factor in you saying, I'm not going back? Because look, you've been sober. Congratulations, man, dude.
Thank you.
You've been sober now for 10 years, right?
Correct. Yes.
So what day was that when you got out? What was your day like when you said, I am not going back there. And from this day forward, I'm going to be this man who will not get better in just one day. It's going to take a lot of 1% of getting better. It's going to take a lot of little baby steps before you
Yeah.
you start to see these larger steps in your rehabilitation process. Paint me a picture. What did that look like?
So if we fast forward a little bit, out of Florida, I'm now in Mississippi. Been in Mississippi for a couple months. Met my wife, Amber, and I remember coming home one day and I had alcohol, and I remember her sitting on the couch and she was watching TV or something. And I was trying to talk to her, and I could tell that she was very distant from me. She wasn't really engaging with me. In that moment, I was like, I'm just gonna go in my room and drink and not even worry about it. And when I went into my room, I sat on the floor and I had the bottle in front of me, and I was looking at it, and I was like, this is the only comfort that I have. This is the only thing that I rely on, and it has done nothing but ruin my life. And I just looked at it, and I just went to the sink and I poured it out, and I was like, I've had enough. Like I can't do that anymore. Like and I don't know why it was that moment. It wasn't the moment that I OD'd. It wasn't the moment I went to prison. It wasn't any of that. It was in that moment right there. I felt like I was touched spiritually
Because you dumped the booze.
because I dumped it out, and it was the first time I had ever looked at it and not wanted it.
And an angry wife could help out with that as well because
Yes.
happy, yeah, happy wife, happy life. And at this point now you're married and you're like, okay, dude, well, what am I doing? Sometimes that silent treatment can, what am I doing? Oh, wait, are you serious right now? Like, I'm drinking, I shouldn't be.
Hmm.
I haven't learned my lesson. Okay, this is it.
Right.
So
Right.
so you're trying to tell me you you had a spiritual moment, you stood up, you dumped the liquor, and you never went back.
Correct.
And it's been 10 years since you did that.
Yes, sir.
Congrats, man. Dude, that's
Thank
huge,
you.
dude. That's a lot of 3-month cycles that have all equaled 10 years. Now, what's life been like for you since that moment you dumped your booze?
So it obviously, whenever you do something like that, it never starts out easy, but if you stick with it, just like with anything, the investment pays off. I looked at it like this is an investment in myself, my family, my spirituality. Um, we started out, very, very minimalist. We were renting a house, I was barely making any money, but we just kept putting our faith in front of our fear, and we put our trust in God, and we put our trust in our family and ourselves, and we just kept going. And eventually, you know, God slowly started elevating us and elevating us to the next level, elevating us to the next level. And we are now at this point, and it hasn't been easy. Like me and Amber's had our struggles. I have two stepkids, and I adopted a kid that she had as my own, and then we have a daughter that me and her had. So I have four kids, um, multiple job changes because of payment or whatever the case may be, and to where we've landed at today has been. I don't want to say it's been trying, but it hasn't been easy, but it's been worth it. There's no point in my life. Me and her got baptized, we got saved, and there's been no point since that time where I've had gone through a situation where we have gone through situations, trust me, where I went through it and I was like, man, I need a fix. Man, I need a drink. Not one time has it crossed my mind. It has completely been abolished from my thought pattern, and that in itself, from physically not being able to not do it, like I got to a point where like I physically could not do it. It was so mentally taxing to try and fight it. It was almost impossible from going to that to, man, I don't even think about it. It's been a miracle, and life is great.
How old are you?
I just turned 34, I think.
You're like, I don't know. I
I
was
think
high
I'm thinking of,
for 20 of those
yeah,
years. How old?
right. Yeah. I think yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm 34. I just turned 34.
Well, really, you're 10. That's what you're thinking.
Right.
I haven't been on any. I'm 10, but you were saved when?
Correct. When
Uh,
were we saved?
yeah.
I think I want to say it was probably about a month after that scenario that I had told
So
y'all about.
10 would be the number, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So you are 10. So you're thinking, oh, I'm 10. I'm born again.
Right. Yeah.
Well, you're like, wait, 30, wait, how, because you're 10, I mean, let's face it, in God's eyes, hey, no, I'm joking. You're always going to be 34, and you have a lot to show for it, a lot of battle scars and wounds out there, if you will, emotionally, mentally, physically, tore you up. But in today's new world that you're living in, that Tyler and Amber and your family are living in,
Hmm.
you are 10, and from here on out, that's what matters. You
Right.
can you can use your past as experience and as knowledge to help other people. We just can't stay there and live there. We've
Right.
got to stay right here in this moment and live minute to minute, hour to hour, day by day, because at any time things can change.
Yeah.
Especially when I have spoken to other addicts out there. They say, "Hey, look, I'm always going to be this, but today I choose not to be." And
Right.
stacking up all those todays again, all those cycles have now equaled 10 years to where it doesn't even come to your mind anymore. You've completely eliminated that thought process, and you've engaged in a new mindset. And
Mhm.
dude, that's man, that's honorable. And
Thank you.
what are you doing today?
So today we one of the things we have is we have an apparel company called the Dying Breed Lifestyle Apparel Company. We do that. We started that about a year ago. We eventually kind of want to get to the point where that's what we do. We're just not to that point yet. So I still have a full-time job. I work for a company who's contracted to one of the biggest retail stores in the nation, and I service all of their low voltage stuff. So I have a very good job. My wife really kind of runs the business, takes care of the kids. She works part-time at a hospital, but doesn't really need to. Um, and we do sports. I coach my daughter's softball team. I mean, I'm just living it up. Like it's great. I love it.
I was right. I didn't know you coached. I was like, hey
Yeah,
man, that's what you look like. You look like a good looking, athletic, happy family man, and
yes,
very
sir.
yeah, I mean, you look successful, man. And
Thank you.
that's a huge comeback, man. So you opened up the Dying Breed Lifestyle Apparel Company.
Yes, sir.
What do you do there?
So this company was born of a conviction to start a company that people can be proud of. People can not only be proud to wear, but they know where their money is going and supporting, and who they're supporting. I think a lot of these bigger companies are, I don't want to get into politics, but they are, you know, doing a lot of stuff that we don't support, but we're still sending them money for their shoes or their whatever. So that was why I started this company. It was not only to do that, but it's also to prop up men and women of faith, to encourage mental and physical and spiritual fitness. I think all those are important, and so that's what the name came from. And we sell activewear apparel. So it's shorts, shirts, women's leggings, just anything where you're just up and moving. That's essentially what we're trying to target. Gym, not just people that go to the gym, but just like everyday people that are moving and grinding. You know what I mean? That's what we sell.
They always say, if you're having a bad day, just get up, get outside.
That's right.
Get outside and connect. Connectivity is everything, really. I mean, we are all energy, and
Mm,
we can carry negative energy or we can carry positive energy. And getting outside and just disconnecting and getting that fresh air and listening to the birds and watching the leaves and the sounds, the sights, the smells, all your senses. And it's kind of like grounding, if you will.
yeah, yes,
That
sir.
always helps out. So, hey, you get outside, you got to get some apparel, right? You got to get some
That's
merch.
right. Yep.
Where can people find you online, Tyler?
All right. So our website is www.tdbla.com. And then we have a Facebook page, which is the actual name of the company, the Dying Breed Lifestyle Apparel Company. And that's our Facebook page. So those are the two places, main places where we're operating at.
All right. So tdbla.com. That's
Yes, sir.
Tango Delta Bravo Lima Alpha.com for all you military centric folks out there that are listening today. Go support Tyler and Amber, guys. This guy, he's done it. It's a redemption story. Again, he's a remnant. He's taken those remnants and he's put his blood, sweat, tears, life challenges, and experience into grinding gear to get out. It's athletic apparel. And this guy's been reborn and he's got a great job now. And now he is also an entrepreneur who is just getting it started out there in life when it comes to the entrepreneurial side of things. Look, you already have. I could tell that you have a entrepreneurial mindset, and you're going to do well.
Thank
Especially
you.
having a faith-based small business like this. That your story really. I mean, look, it tugged at my heartstrings, and because I'm living through this. I'm visualizing everything that you're telling me here, and guess what? You're not the only one out there. There's
Right.
millions of Tylers out there, but there's
Correct.
only a handful of folks that have gotten up, that have defeated this demon, if you will,
Yeah.
and have turned to Christ and have turned to God and have turned to creating a life worth living and getting up for and finding that purpose driven life. And you've done just that. Tyler, Thank you so much for joining us today, man. We definitely need to keep in touch, and I want to follow your business. I'm going to go ahead and follow that on Facebook over at the Dying Breed Lifestyle Apparel Company. And man, dude, I wish you nothing but the best moving forward for you, for Amber, for your family, and for your business.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you letting me come on.
Oh, yeah, of course, man. Anytime.
This is the Today with Tally podcast.